And at Hot Iron Blacksmith here in Peoria, Illinois, just closer to Chillicothe, Illinois. And I just started my fire, and I got a piece of 3/8 inch diameter mild steel, and I'm bringing it up to temperature, and I want to show you just the basics on how we draw a round taper on a piece of round material. So first step is we're coming out of the fire, and we're going to locate my rod right next to the end of my anvil and strike it down about 3 times, turn it a quarter of a turn, and strike again with the end of the rod right at the edge of my anvil. Then I come back and restrike, and bringing this down to a square cross section on the very end of my round rod. So my technique is going to be starting with round, going to square, and then from the square I will then transition to an octagon, and then from octagon I will go back to round. Go back in the fire and reheat, bring my temperature back up to a forging temperature, and I never forge below a black color, in that the metal has a brittle temperature range down below black, which is somewhere, black is about 1,000 degrees, and the brittle range is somewhere around 800 degrees down to about 600 degrees. So I try to avoid distressing my metal in the brittle range. So I'm coming back into my corner and working my tip down to a very sharp tip. So I have like a needle sharp end and a square cross section. I need to draw that length of that. I want a 3-inch long taper for most of my projects, for making a hook or a scroll end on an S hook. So I need about 3 inches of length. I'm going to extend the length of my taper now by hitting behind the initial part that I forged. So I extend my tip out over the edge of the anvil, strike again, to make a square cross section, rotate my left hand back and forth to maintain the square cross section, and I'm hitting them behind where I had just finished forging to extend the length back down into the black color, and I will no longer hit and forge at that temperature. So I go back into the fire and reheat. I'm trying to concentrate my heat behind the hammer location that I just finished. I'm working now back on fresh material, and so I'll be trying to get my heat further back away from the tip. Coming back out of the fire, and then repeat my process to establish the length that I want. I need about 3 inches of length, and since this is a square taper, it's kind of similar to a pyramid, and so the volume of material I need for 3-inch length is about 1/3 of the original length of the round. So now I have approximately 3 inches of taper, and my next step now is to transfer that into an octagon, and the octagon will get me a little bit closer to the round. While I'm transforming from the square to the octagon, I will extend the length a little bit, because the volume of the octagon is per inch is less than the square, and so it will get longer as I stretch it out. I stand behind and put one corner of my square up in the air, stand behind it so I can see. I strike then lengthwise, and then I turn it and repeat that on the next corner, and repeat on the third corner, which has already been slightly hammered by the rebound of the anvil from my previous strike. So now I have the shape of an octagon, uniform facets on each corner. They're basically an octagon shape. Somewhat of a bend. I'm not worried about the bend. That'll come back out when I round it up. My next step then is to convert that octagon into a round. Converting my octagon to a round, I lay it flat on the surface of the face of the anvil, and I start now veering close to the tip of my taper, and I rotate with my left hand, and I just repeat a vertical hammer blow and rotate back and forth, letting the hammer find a high spot and the anvil face hitting on the bottom side of my piece. As I rotate back and forth, I progressively slide my metal underneath my hammer. My hammer stays positioned in the same location, and I move my metal. I never try to chase my hammer around my metal. I always move the metal underneath my hammer, so I have a consistent hammer blow. My hammer is angled slightly to make up for the angle of my piece. That way, as I rotate, I maintain a nice smooth surface. If I were to not angle my hammer, the inside corner of my hammer may dent the taper and end up with hammer blows. So I'm trying to make a smooth surface. So I just repeat that process and continue to plenish the surface down to a finished round taper. This round taper can be used for your S-hooks, other types of anything that you want a nice visual transition from your major stock down to a finished part.